Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pretend World's Real People. As always, I'm Tyler, and it's another frigid day here in Denver. Nothing too crazy, like a -4. Pretty relaxed type of chill. I'm debating on whether or not I want to be, a very tough person and go jog in the snow in this weather, or if I want to just stay inside, work out in the garage until I have acting class tonight. Oh, decisions, decisions. I'll probably take the latter, but I'll tell everybody I did the former. But let's get in to our interview for this episode. I will preface this by saying I knew I was going to have a blast talking to her when my initial outreach email months ago was replied with, sounds weird. I'm interested. I knew it was going to be a blast. And I, of course, am talking about the lovely Summer Hart. Now, she is an actress, a model, a content creator, director, and producer who primarily works in the adult film industry. But hearing her story, there are so many more layers to it. It was just, it was a joy, getting to share that with her and talk to her about, how she got involved in the adult film industry, where she started before. She was actually a burlesque dancer at one point. And yeah, I was just hooked. I had a blast talking to her, and she has one of the I won't say one of the funniest because I can relate to it so much, but it was one of the best party stories we've had on the show. It was funny because I've done the same thing. But yeah, I honestly I have nothing else to say. Let's just get right into the interview. Oh, and Summer, if you're listening to this, I know this episode comes out days before, but within the same week. So happy birthday! I hope you have an amazing birthday and have a wonderful week. So let's get right to it and let's sit down with the lovely Summer Hart.
I'm Summer Hart. I've been working in adult in some capacity for 11 years, and I started off as a burlesque dancer and a cam girl, and now I mostly do adult film.
So I'm really interested to hear the burlesque dancing part of it. I don't know a whole lot about burlesque dancing. We have a few, burlesque, I think they're called cabarets here in
Mhm.
Denver. But how did you gain an interest in becoming a burlesque dancer? Have you always been a dancer? Have you ever been always been more of a like a motion sort of performance artist or
That's a really interesting question. A lot of people who do burlesque dancing would, I would have to tell you that a lot of them, at least when I was doing it, would say things like, "Oh, well, we're not strippers." It was, I don't know another better word to say, but it was very horphobic. There was like a lot of talk that was like, "Oh, well, we're not like these, bad kind of girls that are taking their clothes off. We're artists and artisans, and we make our own clothes." And I heard someone once refer to us as like steampunk strippers, um, which is really, which is really funny and totally true. Um, and I think a lot of people who are in that space, they enjoyed some of the same things that many people enjoy who are dancers or who are making like adult film, which was like kind of some of the freedom of the creativity, some of the like nudity, like some of the stuff in those spaces. And some people just really enjoyed like making costumes and doing routines and stuff like that, which I really enjoyed too. But it also gave me a lot more confidence in my body and like feeling like actually maybe I was sexy and that was okay. I grew up in kind of a rural area, and there's a lot of like sexual shame and feelings that definitely my body wasn't okay, and nudity wasn't okay, and sex and sexuality weren't okay, and that gave me maybe the very first space where I felt like, oh, I could like celebrate this and feel like it was okay, and maybe even like good.
that's I had to go back really quick to the how badass the title of steampunk strippers is. It sounds like a really just outlandish comic book title. So that's a really just badass way to describe it. But yeah, growing up in a community like that must have been, very tough to find ways of like expressing yourself. So when it comes to, leaving that sort of community and then going out on your own, once you graduate high school, what were you looking to do? Like, what were your career aspirations, leaving high school behind and wanting to, truly figure out who you are? Did you have anything in mind that you were looking for? Or were you going out on an adventure and waiting for it to find you?
I think like a lot of people, I maybe grew up in a community that I didn't really feel like I fit into. I feel like the older I get and the more I talk to people, I find that that seems to be like a really common thread for a lot of folks, that they feel like they maybe didn't really fit into the communities they were born into or grew up into, or maybe the families they grew up in. And for me, I mean, I've done a lot of things actually outside of like the adult industry. I've been to probably way too much school. So at that time, this was just something that I was doing for fun. Just so you know, you don't really make any money doing burlesque. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that there's somebody out there who's making just a good living at that. But most people who are dancing in troops, you spend more money on costuming, more time on sewing things, and gluing tiny little pieces of glitter to pasties than you ever could possibly earn on a Friday night where you do a show at a bar. So I never earned very much money at that, and I was kind of always broke, to be honest, and I was struggling to afford school. I never had like parents that were well off, and I kind of always struggled to pay for school, especially as I was getting into my junior and senior year. By that time, I have a sister that I'm 14 years older than, and by that time, I had become her guardian, and I was only 21, and she was 7, and so I started to really, really struggle, and I actually had dropped out for I think it's probably 2 semesters at that point. And I really wanted to be able to finish my bachelor's degree. And that was this big thing. I think it holds over a lot of people's heads, right? I think a lot of people feel really badly about themselves if they start a degree and don't finish it. And I think we're told a lot of times that that's like the most important thing that we can do. Or, I mean, it depends on how, how old you are and what your age is. But, I'm a millennial. And I think that if you're a millennial, like that's something that was taught to you from a very young age. Like we go to college, you go to college if you want to do anything with your life. So around that time, I was like, I wonder, what I could do to actually earn some money. And because, I was bartending and I just like wasn't cutting it. And I started webcamming. And I didn't think that it would be something that I was going to do long term. I just thought that like I really needed to have the money to pay for a semester of college. And if you don't have, parents that have the ability to like, for instance, like sign or co-sign a loan for you, then you can't even get a student loan, for instance, which was the situation that I was in. And I actually ended up really liking webcamming. I thought it was really fun. And I started doing it like every day, actually. People don't believe this or won't believe this or will think this is silly or stupid, but sometimes the people who I met on webcam and who were, talking to me on webcam have been some of the kindest, nicest people to me that I've ever met in my entire life. Like they treated me better than members of my own family. They've been like genuine friends to me. There are people that I met that many years ago that still talk to me and that I still talk to.
No way.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. It was 11, almost 12 years ago.
Oh my God. So, I mean, you developed your own sort of personal community within such a short amount of time that's lasted for that long. That's insane. I've never thought about that, you know?
I actually think there's a
Wow.
lot of people that, maybe over the last, I want to say 5 or 6 years, especially with like Twitch communities
Mhm.
and, cam communities in general, Discord communities that have really started to develop a lot of emotional connections. And, sometimes the word used is parasocial. But sometimes those relationships are not parasocial. Some of those relationships are parasocial for me, right? But
Yeah.
not all of them. Some of them are very connected and have been. And I definitely care about those people and know them on a personal level.
That's incredible, honestly. In going back to the idea of, putting yourself on camera and, you're in front of people that obviously you can't see, that has to be kind of jarring at first. But when you initially dove into that part of, your career, were you hesitant at all, or did you see it as an opportunity to essentially build your own business and make something for yourself. How is it navigating that?
I was 22, so I did not see it as that.
That's fair.
I,
That's fair.
I was like, oh my gosh. I, for the very first time, had like a decent amount of money in my hands. So the only thing I was thinking about was like, um, I had like a 7-year-old in the house, and I was like, how many Pop Tarts can I buy with this money? Like that was the thing I was thinking about, like how many, uh, how I could, afford to pay the entire electric bill all of a sudden was what I was thinking about. So no, those aren't the things that I was thinking about, that this would be like a business or something that I would do long term. And I thought about the fact that, the very first semester that I went back to school, I bought all of my textbooks. I know that sounds really silly, but I had never done that. I had never bought all of my textbooks before the semester started instead of waiting to see if like I really needed them.
Yeah.
That was always like the student experience that I had. I don't know if other people could relate to that, but that's like a very nerve-wracking experience.
I relate wholeheartedly. I would go through probably half the semester and then find out, oh, you need the textbook, and now it's $600. Oh, this is great, awesome. I really enjoy the fact that I'm paying for this. But I didn't have a chance to ask you before. I had a complete brain fart. But what were you going to school for? Did you have a degree in mind, or did you have a couple options? What were you looking to do?
I had actually started originally going to school for nursing, and then I had switched to social work. So at that time, my bachelor's that I was trying to finish was in social work.
Oh my
Which
God, that's incredible.
I did finish that
You
bachelor's.
did?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
That's so cool. Well, oh my, there's so much of your story that I want to ask you everything. Especially when it comes to becoming a guardian and trying to, find ways of supporting that child. So, I mean, obviously you crushed it. You're doing great. So, moving into your career, you went into the camera portion of it, and you didn't really see that as, something you would do long term at all. So, how did you pivot into, going to the, more adult side of it and, partnering with production companies? How did that start for you? How did that happen?
Well, one of the things I kind of realized, for better or for worse, was that I had thought maybe initially that like, okay, and gosh, maybe like I wasn't that bright, and maybe I didn't think enough ahead. And when I talk to other people, I do try to remind them of this, and I do try to tell people this, because people talk to me a lot about like, I want to do adult, or I want to get into adult work, or I want to film things. I hadn't thought about the fact when I started webcamming that people would record these shows and that they would put them online and that they would disseminate them all over the internet. That wasn't something that I was thinking about. And this was, maybe 2012 at this point. So like, maybe it's silly that I didn't think about that. But like I said, my big and main concern at that point was like, having money in my hand to finish school and to take care of people. So, um, there was not a thought in my head, that people will put this on Pornhub, right?
Yeah.
And so by 2012, 2013, there were videos, recorded shows of me, recorded private shows up on everywhere. I mean, all over the internet, forums, stuff like that. And I won't pretend like that didn't distress me. It did. It really significantly distressed me in the beginning, because that wasn't essentially what I had hoped to do. I didn't really want videos and images like that of me out. And I realized at some point, though, that they were helping drive traffic to me. They were helping me get more people into my chat rooms, and that people had like found me or noticed me from them. I still don't think that like the piracy aspect of that and like sharing other people's images without their consent is a positive thing. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to silver lining that. Um, but I I also started to realize that like it was possible for me to potentially monetize things like that. And I started to do that for myself as well. And so um, I started to make, little videos and things that I could sell to people. And I realized actually that I genuinely like being behind the camera. Um, and I like filming, and I actually like editing work. A lot of people don't like editing work, but I actually think it's kind of fun. Pretty zen for me. And by that time, I had a vanilla job, but it sucks. It was during the recession. Yeah. So I was making actually a lot more money, off of clips and off of camming than I was at my vanilla job, which cut my hours back, and I was only able to work 2 days a week during that time. And I was working for a hospice in my vanilla job with my degree, which I enjoyed. A lot of people think that that's a bad job, but it was a great job. And I was working for a hospice, which is a great job. And then I was also, but I was also camming, and I found that I loved camming. I loved the people on cam, and I actually started then, because I had moved to Las Vegas, I started working in some like fetish content, which I thought was really fun, and it kind of allowed me to do some exploration of my own self, which I thought was neat.
Wow, there's always so much to unpack when you're hearing somebody else's story. I'm trying to go back to what I wanted to ask you. Uh, that's I'm working through the recession is one thing. So I can only imagine, you're looking at both funds, and one is just rising up meteorically compared to the other. But as you move to Vegas, and you find these new ways of not only career exploration but self exploration. Did you find like there was a different community of those who work in the adult film industry in Vegas that are a little more tight knit, or maybe more welcoming than there were where you previously lived?
Yeah, yes. I'm looking at you and I'm thinking like, yeah, you're probably about the same age as me. So, maybe you're a little younger. I don't know, but like I had graduated college, I moved to a new city. I got this like first initial job. It was like an hourly job, even though you have like this bachelor's degree. And they like continually cut my hours. Las Vegas was hit particularly hard by the recession. And actually, the place that I worked closed. Um,
Oh
like,
no.
pretty much. I feel like a year, maybe a year and a half after I moved here, they completely shut down the hospice that I was working for.
Oh,
Anyway, but during that time, I was okay, and it was fine that I didn't have that job. I mean, it wasn't fine, but it was fine that I didn't have that job, because I was like, well, I I have this other job, right? Like I can still I can still make videos, I can still work in fetish, and yeah, you're right. I met people who were completely different than anyone I had ever met. Some of the first companies that I started working for out here were like spanking companies. One of them is called like Shadow Lane, and they do like spanking clips, and I was really into that, or I kind of discovered in some ways that I was really into that by doing some of those films. One of the coolest things about this career is that there are things that people would bring to you, right? Like things that you might not have decided to try or decided to do, and things that I think I would have normally just been like, okay, no. But then someone would say, hey, would you try this for some money? And you would sit there and you'd think about it. And of course, you could always say no. But then you thought about it and you're like, well, let's do it. And sometimes it would turn out that it was really, really fun.
you just left yourself open to the universe and just saw what happened, essentially, right? To see, like you said, learning more about yourself.
Yeah. And I think so few people get that opportunity, in part because it's like, it's bad, it's wrong, or you're not supposed to, kind of thing. But also, like, you don't get the opportunity to even have it cross your path.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's obviously with different variations, but that's a similarity that is split between both, the adult film industry and then, I'm in TV and film, is that idea that you are able to explore all these different avenues that you may end up enjoying in life as well. Like for me, I ended up I ended up ice skating, during a scene. Never really done it before, and now I love it. Like it's insane how, which I know it's not a comparison,
No, that's totally a
but
comparison.
yeah, like being open to exploring new facets about yourself you didn't even think about before. And we are pretty similar in age. I was born in '92. I think you were born in the '90s as well, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we've both gone through the ebbs and flows of each recession and economic crisis and all this other stuff, and having to pivot and find new ways of making money. So I'm really interested, once you open yourself up to these new opportunities, you resettled in Vegas. Did you have a new plan in life that you wanted to see fulfilled, or were you just looking at it as, well, let's take 1 week at a time and see what happens?
Oh my gosh, it's a really good question. I okay, I had lived in Texas and then I had lived in Oregon, and then I was just like, I just want to move anywhere. um, and I had known a couple of people in Vegas, and I was like, let's just move to Vegas because I know some people there, and like maybe they could help me like get a job. Um, and that's literally the reason I ended up in Vegas, which is just happenstance lucky because there's so many good adult career moves that you can make in Vegas, and there's a lot of people that do adult in Vegas, and it's also just maybe it's not like the most open place in the world, but it's pretty forgiving.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of great business over there. And honestly, I received an email from a PR company beginning of this month about going to AVN and doing some press stuff. Like if I could afford it, I would totally go. But I am locked down here. Uh, Another thing that we haven't really touched on, but what do you like to do outside of your job? I mean, what keeps you spiritually satiated? What lets you, kind of relax a little bit? What do you enjoy doing outside of your job?
Um, okay, so somehow over the quarantine, I started like brewing. I've been brewing mead and kombucha, and I became a little a bit of a home brewer. I've been having a really fun time with that. So if I go to D&D or have my friends in D&D, then I send over a little bit of mead if I can, which is fun. Um, I also started roller skating around the same time. A lot of people started roller skating during the pandemic. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I hadn't been rollerblading in 10 years, and I got back into it during the pandemic. So yeah, now they're everywhere. So is Vegas just littered with roller skaters on the weekends?
Yes, there's a place by my house. It's just a random park, but most weeknights there are people just roller skating there and people playing music, and it's incredible. Like there are no fewer than 30 to 40 people. I mean, if the weather's bad,
Yeah.
no, but like if it's decent weather, even if it's really hot, there are yeah, and it is. There are 30 to 40 people in that park roller skating with a boombox like it's 1995.
What? Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god. I wish I'm based out of Denver. We have like some of that here and there, but never a group of more than like 5 guys who all know each other, and you can't, just stroll up to them and say, "Hey, can I join your crew?" That's that sounds amazing. Wow. So, and sorry, I need to go back to the home brewing aspect of it. Any chance Summer Hart is going to start her own brewery down the road, or is this strictly just for the love of it?
um, so actually it's crazy, but I learned everything to do brewing from Reddit.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if you want to learn how to brew, I guess go to Reddit. Um, they'll teach you they're like professionals on Reddit, man. And if you don't want to make something so professional, there's like an R prison hooch, and you could turn ham glaze into wine. I don't know. They know everything too. Yeah, but yeah, I learned how to do it on Reddit. Because I was bored and I felt like I couldn't leave my house, and I started making kombucha.
Yeah.
Heard that was really good for you, and then I was like, "Well, I wonder if we can make the kombucha alcoholic," and you can.
Yeah.
Um, so you can, and it's funny because I don't even really drink, but I wondered if I could, brew mead. And there's like a couple of local apiaries here that have honey and that I get honey from. And I thought, well, let's try that. And I started reading about it. But yeah, no, I've never sold any of it. It's just an expensive hobby.
Oh yeah, yeah. I do forget about the homebrewing kits and how it's like a launching point for how much money you're going to spend.
Well, I tell you, you can make hard kombucha for really cheap, and mead doesn't have to be expensive. But I go to the I go to this old Greek man here in town and buy his very expensive honey. So
That's a really cool I don't think anyone I've talked to has picked up brewing during the pandemic. And it's having worked for breweries throughout the years, it is one of the coolest processes to see done. I can only imagine making it in your home and making more than just beer and having, kombucha and mead. And
okay,
that's so cool.
beer is hard.
Yeah.
Beer is a really difficult one. Beer requires also a longer process and a greater process. I've actually never brewed a beer. I mean, there are people that do it, but mead and kombucha are a little bit easier, and you don't need any special equipment to make mead. So
I think that's me trying to manifest you making beer at some point.
okay, I'll think about it.
uh, I really this chat's just been really fun getting to know you, getting to know your life and your career. But I do want to ask, when it comes to the importance of this show and the guests we have on it, if you have any advice you can instill upon the listeners of this show. Now, it could be advice about just becoming yourself, navigating career pivots, maybe some advice that's helped you. Do you have anything you could pass along to our listeners?
Hmm. I think I've always been amazed at people that can stay and stick with careers that don't make them happy and don't make them feel fulfilled, and where they don't feel like they have control. Um, I don't know if that's advice, but
Yeah.
I'm amazed by people that are able to do that. Um, Generally, um, for me, the thing that has allowed me to maybe have longevity in the space that I'm in has been feeling as if I can be in control of a lot of the aspects of what I'm doing. And there are definitely aspects that I've not been in control of. And I think that that's probably true with all work, because you have to work with other people and you can't control what they do and you can't control how they decide to do things, or how they perceive things, or what they do with other things. But um, for me, I do feel like that bit of aspect has allowed me to like stick in and stick with it,
Yeah.
um, and have a longer career.
I think that's perfect. And that goes for anyone. That's the beauty of advice that people held on to, is that it goes with anybody, no matter what. Uh yeah, God, that's really sorry. I'm just writing it down in my notes, listeners, if you hear a hum. uh Also, with each episode, we love giving, shout outs and promotions to something our guests really care about, whether it's, your own business or a charity or organization you really believe in. Is there anything I can give a shout out to in the episode notes?
Oh, that would be so cool. So, I actually help run a 501c3 nonprofit. It's called SWAID Vegas, SWAID Vegas. And we are a harm reduction and micro grant mutual aid. And we specifically give harm reduction and micro grants to sex workers of any kind. So anybody who works in the adult industry. So I don't know if you're a phone sex operator, or you do, I don't know, you're an escort or you're a dancer, or you do adult performance of some kind. Um, we want to like help give you mutual aid in like whatever capacity we have the ability to do it. So our typical ways of giving mutual aid are that we give microgrants. So we give like small amounts of money to people, which you know, that is limited, but we have been able to give quite a bit out to people, like over a year sometimes. And we fundraise for all of that personally. We are not grant funded. We don't have any kind of sponsorship. So that comes from everybody in the community, and our community is people who are adult performers and sex workers. And then we give out harm reduction. And so over this past year, we actually became a Narcan distributor. If you're not familiar with Narcan, Narcan is an overdose medication. So about 100,000 people a year die of opioid overdoses in the United States, and that's an estimate. In fact, like, I don't really know anybody who hasn't been impacted by that in some way personally. Almost everyone I know has had somebody pass away, or knows somebody that's had somebody pass away or has been impacted by that, which is part of the reason why we wanted to become a Narcan distributor. One of the things about like being a sex worker in general is that a lot of people think that your life doesn't matter and your life's not important, and your life is, less important than other people's lives. And even though a lot of us are not drug users personally, I think a lot of us understand what it feels like to have people think that your life is not valuable. And partly because some of us have been affected, and partly because many of us just know what that feels like. We wanted to become a Narcan distributor. And so we became a Narcan distributor for the state. So you can get Narcan from us. We also have fentanyl test strips. So fentanyl being the thing that people overdose on and die from, that kills over 100,000 people a year in the United States. So we have that. We give all of that out for free. And of course, we are working with sex workers. So we give out Plan B. We were just at AVN that you were talking about. We give out so much Plan B at AVN. We give out Plan B condoms, internal condoms. We give out also on the other side, on the drug use harm reduction side, we give out clean needles. And sometimes we give out other supplies, diapers, grocery gift cards, stuff like that, like whatever we can try to do, because we are a mutual aid group, and that's our biggest thing that we're trying to do is just try to aid the people in our community with whatever we can do for them.
That's incredible. Honestly, thank you for being a part of that, and thank you for letting us share it, because I had no idea about that. I'm sharing the shit out of that. That's sorry. I love when people are really passionate about helping others and are heavily involved in it. So Summer, thank you first and foremost for that. One last thing I have for you before we say our goodbyes, and I forgot to mention it earlier, but I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing a party story if you have one with our listeners. So that being a story, could be in your life, in your career, just something that stands out so immensely you could easily recant it amongst friends at a party. It could be really funny. It could be kind of scary, thrilling, just anything you want. We usually go for funny. So if you have something goofy in your arsenal, that would be awesome.
Okay. So I usually don't tell stories about when I was young, but I'll tell you a story about when I was young. So in high school, I ran track, and I had been training, and I'm not very tall, but I really, really wanted to, for whatever reason, to do hurdles. And I had decided that I was going to, yeah. And my coach, probably being a very, kind person, was like, okay, you can try. And so I was, training for probably 2 weeks, trying to learn to do hurdles. And we had this race where, and I went to a very rural school, and we had this race where there was only 2 teams that had anybody signed up to do hurdles. And she was like, hey, I know you've been training. You're guaranteed to get a spot. Go run the hurdle. And I was pumped. And it was also at my high school, and everybody had gotten out of school for the day to sit in the stands. And of course the hurdle track goes right in front of the stands. And I was like, oh man, this is so exciting, right? I was so excited to do this. And But I'd never done it like in a race or anything like that. I had just practiced in practice. But I was excited because I was definitely going to get a place and I was definitely going to get a little ribbon or whatever. And so I run out there and I'm actually winning. I'm the first place, and I kind of look around and I'm coming right in front of the stands where everybody's sitting. Um, and for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm like 14 or 15 years old. I don't know how my body works. I'm clumsy. I never put my leg up to go over the hurdle, but I just kind of like dive over it like like a like a Superman dive. I still don't know why. I mean, I, I never, I still can't figure out what made this happen. And um, not only does this happen, but my track shorts are like a little bit too big. And so, yeah, yes. So I lose my track shorts. Like they come like all the way, not like all the way down, but like down enough that they slide down like over my butt. And my butt shows. And I scrape up not just like my stomach and my legs and my knees, but also my face. So that it's like I hit my side of my face. Um, and not only did I not place, but I actually didn't do any more hurdles ever again in my life. I got up and walked off of the track. And then for like the rest of the time that, like weeks at school, I have like a scraped up face that I can't hide. And that was probably the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. I think about that. That's one of those things that, like, how, like, people say, like, they think about things that they said, like that weird thing that they said. I still lay in bed at night when I'm having anxiety and think about that.
I can't thank you enough for that story. Honestly, that
Now you feel better about being in high school, yeah.
uh, I mean, I have my stories. I mean, I was an overweight fat kid in high school, so I could tell you stories all day. But that was incredible. Thank you for bearing your heart to us when it comes to that. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't stop giggling. That's a really great story. I gotta wrap it up here, but I want to say, Summer, like this was a joy talking to you, getting to know you, hearing your story. I do want to ask you, have you ever seen Wayne's World?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, thank God. So to wrap up every single episode, I just like to do what we call an awkward goodbye, similar to when Wayne walked off the set and Garth is left to his own devices in front of the green screen, and he's kind of stammering, doesn't know what to say. So if you wouldn't mind, and if you're up for it, I'm going to give you a silent 3, 2, 1 countdown. When I point to you, give us your best verbal awkward goodbye, and I'll stop the recording from there.
Okay.
Does that sound good? All right, here we go. In
Um, bye.